pick up, you mentioned social media, and that clearly has a gigantic impact out there, opportunity and risk. But maybe from the panelists, their views on what they're seeing around social media and the impact would be very interesting.
Well, I think corporations virtually universally now are monitoring. They have people who monitor social media all the time, because there's a lot of misinformation obviously out there about companies, and it could be being fed by your competitors or your customers or anyone. But the fact is that you cannot let some of this stuff stand as truth in social media if it's damaging to the company. And so I think almost everybody is out there looking for mention of their company, allegations, complaints, whatever it is, to make sure that they know what's being said and they're dealing with it. It's very difficult.
I agree. The real question is, where's the opportunity side? And certainly monitoring negative reports about the company, you should know what people are saying and deal with them. There are, on the other side, the corporate structure is wholly antithetical to the notion of 140 characters getting something out in the next minute and a half. I mean, it just doesn't work. But I think companies are struggling with how to use it to their advantage. But understanding it at the board level is sort of step one.
Let me, disruptive technologies, and there's a number of things. I mentioned big data, I mentioned the cloud, artificial intelligence, but just, if I went around, I've got a lot of industries and sectors represented here. What sort of issues are you seeing at the board around these disruptive technologies and the type of discussion that's taking place? John, why don't I?
Well, constantly at one of the boards we're looking at what is happening within our industry and to what extent are people gaining on us, or to what extent, using social media that Bob and Eileen talked about, that to what extent are there negative thoughts on the products that we're offering, solutions. In some instances, we step forward and even go on the offensive in that regard. We interact with the social media critic, if you want to call it, of our particular service or product through chat lines or other vehicles using the same sort of medium that they use. In other instances, though, we endeavor to try and deal with the particular problem, plus as well bring other new products to the table to provide the sort of stickiness. One might look at what's going on in the cable industry currently, Don, where there's a lot of discussion about cord cutting and a lot of discussion of just access over the internet and things of that nature. And one of the major reasons why we were interested in the NHL contract was content and enormous stickiness that the NHL hockey has in Canada. And so that was a kind of a strategic response to an attack on our service. Netflix is out there now, and we've introduced another product in conjunction with Shaw Communications that we hope will as well satisfy our customers. So you just can't let it sit there, as Eileen says. You've got to go on the offensive, yet on the other hand, it's good to talk to the customer.
Just thinking about this issue, disruptive technologies, it's also called innovation. And Bob, I know beforehand we talked a bit about what you've seen, a bit of a trend in the U.S. around innovation and the board role focus. It'd be interesting to share that with the.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, one of the board's top three is weighing in on strategy and the oversight of the development of strategy, and maybe it comes from a place that, while management is responsible for seeing the disruptions that might be on the horizon, that maybe the board could be additive. And so there is some folks believe that forming a, well, they don't like to call it the disruption committee, so they call it the innovation committee, or using all that talent and all that experience and bring it to bear on places where management might be, frankly, even a little naive about. We've been selling widgets for 100 years. We're just going to sell more of them. And of course, things change, and seeing that before it's your reality is the trick. So I don't know. We're starting to see special committees, and they're not ad hoc. They're standing committees with charters being formed in this area, which I think is sort of fascinating.
John, I know you have a view on this one.
Well, I do. My view is that management is charged with the responsibility of running the day-to-day affairs of the board, and they're as well to be day-to-day affairs of the company, and they're as well responsible for evaluating what is happening strategically around us. I think as well the board members have, to use your words, insight, foresight. They have contributions to make to that particular discussion. But I would hate to see a board committee take away from basically management the responsibility to look for innovation. And at the same time, I fear cost creep occurring throughout the organization. Committee deciding to hire their own consultants in addition to the consultants that may be hired by the company itself. Now, Don, I know that you would like that to happen, particularly if it was Deloitte in both cases, but putting that aside, I would really rely on the quality of the management that you have, the expertise that they bring to the table. If you're not satisfied with the expertise, ask for somebody else to do the work again.
But I guess there's agreement that this topic of innovation, disruption, that is clearly a board agenda somewhere, whether it's a committee, whatnot.
Yeah, there's some object lessons out there. We were talking earlier about Blockbuster, just to throw a name on the table. But, what was it that they didn't see until the freight train hit them? Whether it was management or the board or whatever. I mean, the issue of Netflix and some of these other things that were coming down the pipe. With the beauty of hindsight, it was pretty clear that that was coming. But people who have a vested interest in the operation as it exists really, don't. Every bone in their body doesn't want to believe it, right? And so the issue is how can the board ask the question in such a way as to actually move the discussion onto a what-if basis, so that management doesn't necessarily feel that they're being criticized, but at the same time, you get the discussion going, because if you don't get the discussion, you end up with Blockbuster.
But isn't another sort of dimension of this is mitigating risk? We've been talking about that, but obviously, if your strategy doesn't contain sufficient risk to make money and add value, you've also failed in your oversight. So trying to get both of these things in balance in a way that makes sense is the real trick, I think. And again, the board's supposed to have that degree of separation, be able to see where it's short either way. Either you're not doing enough to mitigate the bad stuff, or you're not aggressive enough in your business plan to create value. And the board is the one that kind of puts it on the scales, I think. That's the way I think about it.
It's a tough one, because organizations do gain inertia, right? So understanding the barriers that are there. I mean, if you're working with a large workforce and then you're trying to put in technology which will displace a large number of those individuals, if it's in a unionized, that has got to be a significant issue that you need to think through. Other thoughts, John?
Well, Don, I was just going to say, as I think forward, I think the leadership of the CEO and the culture that the CEO takes towards innovation can drive an awful lot of good things happening. In other words, somebody not prepared to accept the status quo. I think of the late Ted Rogers and the comments that he made many times. He was never satisfied with today. He always said the best is yet to come. So he was always looking ahead, never looking kind of where we are or behind. So he was the CEO of the day. He was obviously a founding chairman, a very significant shareholder. And he just knew things were going to be coming in that space, and we had to be ahead of the game. So.
Yeah, and it's having that forward thinking. So the CEO, sometimes I think CEO timeframes are like 5 years, and boards should be actually 5 to 10 plus. So you need to make sure there's enough thinking in that time zone, not the here and now. Any event, we've reached that time where we need to get you engaged. So here's the question. How distinct is the discussion of emerging versus traditional risks on your board? And what are you seeing as the top emerging risks?